Welcome back. In this video, we shall talk about using the effect hook to fetch data from an API with Axios. To do this, the first thing we shall be doing is installing the Axios package in our project like so. Pull up your command prompt or terminal if you're using a Mac and make sure you are in your project directory. So run this command npm install Axios. After installing Axios, let's go over to our VS Code and let's import Axios. Let's do the RFCE there. And let's say import Axios from Axios, just like so. Now here in our React import here, let's not fail to import use state and use effect. Let's come into our function here and let's create states. Let's create states of post and set post. That's supposed to be a comma sign, not a period sign. And let's say use state will be set currently to an empty array. So let's come down here and let's say use effect. Our use effect is going to take an empty arrow function that is going to say Axios dot get. In this bracket here, the bracket of the get function here, we are going to pass the URL that stores the data we want to grab from the API. So let's go to our API. Let's come over here. This is our API JSON placeholder. And let's select this here post. And let's just grab the URL like so. And let's go back to our VS Code and put this in quotes. Paste that. And as we know, API calls are always promises. So we are going to say .then, let's say my res will be set to set post. Let's say my res dot data. Let's save that. And outside here, let's say dot catch, and dot catch is going to be my error console.log my error. Let's save that. Now, as we all know, the use effect hook can always have a dependency, but in this case, let's pass in an empty array, which means we just want this to behave like component did mount. You know, in our class-based components, we always made API calls in the component did mount lifecycle method. So we are going to make this use effect hook here act like a component did mount lifecycle method. So we are doing that by passing in an empty array as a dependency. Now let's save that. Now in our JSX, let's pass in curly braces like so. And let's say post dot map. Let's use the map function and let's pass in items here, which is an arrow function that is going to return a JSX like so. And in our JSX, we're going to pass in a h5 tag that's going to have a key, and the key will be set to items.id, and we are going to pass in items.title here. So let's save this, go back to our server to see what we have. Let's run our server npm start. In our server, everything is fine, everything is compiled successfully. Now let's go to our browser to see what we have. As you can see, the API call was successful, and this is all we got from our API. So if you come here, you see this is what we have in our title. And if you go to our app, you see we have the same thing here. The first one, you see the second one is this. And that's because in our JSX here, we only grabbed the title. So you can go ahead and grab more than the title. You see we have the user ID, we have the ID, we have the title and the body. So you can go ahead and grab the body by just saying items.body. That's all. So let me explain what we have here. After we imported our Axios, we created a state here and set the use state to an empty array. After that, we fetched our data using Axios in our use effect hook. If you recall, in our class-based components, we used to fetch data from an API with the fetch function in the component didMount lifecycle method. So this use effect here will mimic or replace component didMount. And it will really mimic component didMount because we are passing in no dependency here. So here, we use Axios to grab data from our API by passing the URL inside our get function that is called on our Axios package here. Then as usual, we know API calls are promise-based calls. So we have to resolve our call by passing in this block of .then, which grabs the response from our Axios.getAction and set our state, which is set post, to the data it grabbed from the Axios call. Then we can set a reject call here using the .catch function if we want to. But as we know, it is safe to do so because promises can be resolved or rejected. So finally, in our return block, we use the .map function to perform our render like so. So this is how to use the Axios package to perform API calls in React hooks using the use effect hook. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to share.